Hey everybody, I figured I'd make an update video just to let you all know that Gran is doing good and she's still enjoying Animal Crossing. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to visit Gran as much as we'd like to lately because of the pandemic and the weather. She lives about 2 hours away and it's been snowing a lot lately, so traveling there has been difficult. I'd like to do another update video with her in the near future, and you may have noticed that the past 3 videos all feature her at different ages, starting with 87 and ending at 89, so I thought it might be funny to continue this theme by making the next video when she turns 90 in a few months, but we'll see. In the meantime, I wanted to take this video as an opportunity to tell you a little bit more about Gran and her history of video games. This video is mostly just going to be me talking, but if you're interested in Gran lore, then please sit back, grab a snack, and enjoy the rest of the video. The story starts in the late 80s when I was just a kid. I was playing a game called Shadowgate on my Nintendo Entertainment System. Shadowgate was a point-and-click adventure game that involved a lot of text and reading, which was sort of a challenge in itself to a kid just learning how to read. In this game, you'd go from room to room collecting items that were used to solve puzzles across various rooms. It was sort of like a video game version of an escape room. In addition to having a lot of puzzles to solve, one area of the game featured a sphinx that asked the player riddles. He'd ask you a riddle, and you'd have to show him the item that correctly answered the riddle. I got stuck here, and the first person I thought to ask was Gran. Now, I spent a lot of time living with Gran as a kid. With my mom going to college and working full-time, Gran was sort of my designated babysitter. As a kid in the 80s, life was all about playing video games, riding your bike around the neighborhood, and watching cartoons like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles after you got home from school. Gran's life, on the other hand, seemed to involve crocheting, watching soap operas on TV, and solving crossword puzzles. Needless to say, there wasn't a huge intersection in our interests before video games came along.
Think he's marrying a former stripper.
Gran read the text on screen. First burned and beaten, drowned and pierced by nails, stepped on by long-faced animals, was the riddle asked by the Sphinx. Looking over my inventory, Gran saw the answer. A horseshoe, she answered with a little bit of uncertainty. See, Gran always had this habit of humility. Even when she knew she had the right answer to something, she never boasted about it or made it seem like she was totally confident. Sure enough, she was right. I showed the horseshoe to the Sphinx, and the Sphinx disappeared from the room to grant me passage. This was Gran's first ever interaction with a video game. I remember her giggling with amusement. She seemed pretty happy that she had gotten it right. From then on, Gran's perspective on video games had changed. She seemed a little more curious about the games I was playing. She knew that some of them featured riddles and puzzles, which she loved. Unfortunately, I didn't have too many other games like Shadowgate in my collection back then. The action-oriented games that I did have involved a lot of quick button inputs that were just a little too much for her. And then, Tetris came along. Tetris was packed in with the original Game Boy when it launched. The hype of a handheld gaming system was a totally new concept at the time, and even though I only had 2 games for it, I loved the aspect of portable video gaming. Turns out I wasn't the only one in the house interested in the Game Boy. Gran's son, my uncle, would find my Game Boy lying around after I'd played with it, and he'd turn it on and fidget with the buttons. Not really knowing how to play the game, but still enjoying the experience of playing with it regardless. My uncle is disabled, and he relies solely on others for help with even the most basic tasks. For his entire life, Gran has been his primary caretaker, and her hard work and devotion to taking care of her disabled son for the past 65 years has been nothing short of incredible. When Gran noticed my uncle playing with my Game Boy, she decided to get him a Game Boy of his own. Though his interest in the Game Boy was short-lived, it was actually Gran who ended up playing Tetris on the Game Boy that she bought for her son. So ultimately, that Game Boy became Gran's Game Boy. Fast forward several years later to February of 1996. There was a little known game called Pokemon that was coming out, and I was beyond hyped for it.
I'll be right back!
Where can you catch all 150 Pokemon?
I read about this game in my Nintendo Power magazines a year before. A portable game where you go around catching monsters to battle and trade? I was sold. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to convince any of my friends of the hype. We were all teenagers in high school at the time, and the idea of playing a handheld game about catching monsters seemed childish to them. They were more into skateboarding, partying, and being edgy. Nowadays, that sort of stuff goes hand in hand with playing Pokemon. But I knew someone who had a Game Boy that I just might be able to convince to play with me. When I first handed Gran her copy of Pokemon Blue, and I told her about it, she gave me the old spiel. "Oh, I don't know what you want me to do with this. I don't think I'll like it." I think she's done that with just about every video game I've ever given her, including Animal Crossing, which she then proceeded to log thousands of hours in. Needless to say, she stuck with Pokemon and we played it together. We even had a little cable to connect our Game Boys together so we could battle and trade. After that, we played Pokemon Yellow, Gold, and Silver. In addition to Pokemon, another fun monster catching game that we played was Dragon Warrior Monsters on the Game Boy Color. Dragon Warrior Monsters is basically Dragon Quest as a Pokemon game. And as a huge fan of Dragon Quest, I'm really glad that Gran got to experience a Dragon Quest spin-off. By the time Pokemon Crystal came out, I had graduated high school and was starting college. I moved out and lived 3 hours away to stay on campus, and there was so much going on at the time in my personal life that I didn't really keep up with Pokemon anymore. I'm not sure if Gran did either. We recently found what looked like a mint condition copy of Pokemon Emerald in her possession, but it might have belonged to my little brother. It wouldn't be until Pokemon Platinum that Gran would be reunited with this series. As much as Gran enjoyed playing video games, I was sort of the one that incited her to play them, and without me, she didn't really have the means to discover new titles. Gran mostly gamed on handheld platforms like Game Boy, DS, 3DS, and now the Switch, which she also plays in handheld mode. She never really got into console games, but she has played and beaten Chrono Trigger on the Super Nintendo, which I think is a pretty amazing accomplishment. In 2005, I moved out to California and was living in San Francisco. At a bus stop, I saw an ad for a DS game called Professor Layton and the Curious Village, which boasted itself as a puzzle adventure game. Between the core gameplay being puzzles and its charming aesthetic, it looked like it might be the perfect game for Gran. She ended up loving it so much that she played every subsequent release, and I believe this series is what originally motivated us to get her a 3DS so she could play the new ones. After finishing the first 6 Layton games, there wasn't much else for her to play. We tried a few other obscure puzzle games on the DS, like Hotel Dusk and Trace Memory, but these games didn't quite click with her. On the 3DS, we tried hidden object games like Jack the Ripper and other miscellaneous puzzle games from the eShop. Finally, there was one game that didn't involve mystery or puzzle solving, but something told me Gran might like this game. This game was Animal Crossing New Leaf. I remember mentioning New Leaf to her before buying it, and she wrinkled up her nose and shook her head saying, "No, I don't think I'd like that." But Christmas was coming up and I wanted to continue my tradition of getting Gran a video game. I figured I'd take a chance on New Leaf anyways. If she didn't like it, it could just collect dust with the other ones she didn't play. But boy did she play it. And I knew she loved it, because every time I'd talk to her on the phone she'd tell me about it, and how she played it every day. But it wasn't until Gran broke her 3DS that I learned the full scope of her New Leaf love. Gran had a lovely pink and white 3DS XL that we got for her back in 2013. I think I even set up a GoFundMe to help raise money for it, because I was out of work at the time and I really wanted to get it for her, but funds were tight. She had that 3DS for years and it was well taken care of, until one day she accidentally dropped it and it broke at the hinge. This was in 2018, and at this point that particular model was hard to find and incredibly expensive. I remember explaining my dilemma on Reddit and asking where I might find one. A kind Redditor from Germany told me that she had one that was barely used. It was NTSC format for the North American region, and she offered it to me at a reasonable price, so I bought it. When I was transferring Gran's game data over from her broken 3DS system, I noticed her activity log, 3,580 hours on Animal Crossing New Leaf. I immediately snapped a pic of the activity log screen and posted it to Twitter. The post blew up and became my most popular tweet ever. People were interested and were asking to see what her town looked like. So I decided to make a video. A very unsteady and poorly shot video on my phone camera. But the production quality didn't matter. The content was enough to gain that video 12 million views. It was shocking, but I'm happy that people got to meet the wonderful lady that I'm proud to call my own grandmother. The amount of love and support that people have reached out with has been incredible. Gran's not one to bask in the limelight. She's just happy to enjoy her games, but all of us are thankful for the love, fan art, and words of kindness that you all share with us. Thank you. I look forward to making more videos with Gran in the future, so please like this video and subscribe if you haven't already. I would also like to feature other content on my channel that won't be Gran related, so I hope you don't mind if I do. If you enjoyed the format of this video, please let me know in the comments. I would like to tell you more stories about other incredible people I've met in my life. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.